Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing? Good? Everybody's a little bit cooler now, hopefully. Nobody's talking to me. Can somebody say hello? There we go. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Elder Penny. Okay. So I figured it always takes me a while to figure out what the heck I'm doing. Okay, I think that we're good now. Hello, Mike, and all who enter. That's polite. Mike's greeting everybody. Hi, Carrie. Oh, that's warm. Hello, Libby. Sorry, I have to stop fidgeting. All right, I think I'm good now. Everybody have a nice weekend. Did you eat a lot? I ate a lot. You guys know I think I've said it before, like, I'm not really a, like, snacks or, like, sweets or desserts type of person, there's certain things I like, I love gummy bears, I think I told you guys that before, and I love combos, and I love Cool Ranch Doritos. But because of that, I don't like to buy them because if I keep it here, then I'm gonna end up eating the whole thing. Um, so I've been pretty good, especially with the gummy bears because that's so sweet, all that sugar and whatever. Um, so I've been pretty good at not buying it, but I bought some last night. Look at this bag. Oh, I wonder if I'm not supposed to do that. Whatever, I'm not advertising it. Um, stuff. Um, um, anyway, I bought that. I bought that big bag, and I ate like half of it. So it's not good, but it's so delicious, but it's not good. A lot of sugar. Sorry, guys. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hi, Pastor Haiti. Went to the beach yesterday. It was beautiful. Now Jason looks like a lobster. I bet. Gotta put on sunblock. But yesterday was definitely a big beach day. Was it crowded? Because I heard a lot of people that went to the beach. I'm sure it was packed. You guys know the deal. We'll wait a few minutes for anybody that's going to be jumping on, and we'll get right started. Okie dokes. And I will be sure to keep it better all of the time. I know I went a little bit later than usual last week. So I'll try to be a little bit more conscious of the time for this week. Okay? Mm. Sorry, I'm not talking to you guys. I'm just watching. I'm watching YouTube. It's just a worship song. I like it. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started, okay? Father, we thank you. Mm. Mighty God, we thank you for who you are. Lord, for how faithful you are to us, how you know us, God. Your peace, your comfort, Father, everything that you are, God, we are so thankful to you. God, you know every single situation. You know what everyone is facing. And I know that you are faithful to intervene, oh God. You are faithful, God, to bring forth your comfort, Lord. And I prayed over every single person, oh God. Your peace, Lord. Your comfort, oh God. Your wisdom in every single decision, Lord. Healing where it's needed. Deliverance where it's needed. Father, you are so faithful. And we thank you and we bless you, Lord. In your precious name. Amen. Amen. So if you guys remember last week, we started speaking about the importance of our communication, understanding that a big part of our relationships are based widely upon how we communicate. And we have many different relationships that we can be speaking about when we're talking about communication. And that can be with your spouse, your child, your family, your friends, your colleagues, people in ministry. There's so many different forms of communication or relationships that we have, and we're working on how to be effective communicators and understanding how we currently communicate, realizing also that based on the relationship or the environment, we can communicate in different styles based on those different things, but we all have a common goal in mind, and that's to be an assertive communicator. So last week when we spoke about first the passive communicator, and that's the person who is just agreeable for the sake of being agreeable because they don't want to make any waves. And when we're talking about these different styles of communication, the four that we're speaking about, we you want to mainly think about it in how you communicate when there's conflict, or or something that you don't agree with. Think about what style you take in communicating when it comes to those different environments or situations. So the passive person just agreed. They don't make eye contact when speaking. Some people might shut their eyes when they're having a communication, or they won't look at your eyes or look all around, or they won't want to make eye contact when asked their opinion about something. They'll just give a shrug of the shoulders, or just be completely submissive and just agree, even if they don't really feel that way about the situation. And we spoke about how there's obviously negative to that, in that sure, you may think that you're keeping the peace, but you're also not showing the real you. So you're doing a disservice to the relationships that you have, and also in not being able to speak your mind, especially in the heat of conflict, or if you feel like someone's being aggressive with you. You are storing all that on the inside, and you may release it to another relationship in an aggressive manner, or just hold on to it and just harbors there and harbors there. It causes resentment to arise, and all those negative qualities that can come from holding on to this passive tone of communicating. Then we spoke about the aggressive communicator, and this is someone who's very domineering. They feel like they are right. It's, a lot of times it can be attributed to be a positive trait, a type A personality. Well, I'm aggressive. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. And that's not what an aggressive communicator is. An aggressive communicator is someone who just thinks that they're always right. They don't want to hear what the other person has to say. They may use foul and vile language, and kind of, give their strength, by raising their voice, and even in nonverbal ways. They're just extremely aggressive. They can make people that they're communicating with uncomfortable. They can people who have an aggressive communication style, their relationships will be negatively impacted, because they won't people won't want to deal with them. They won't want to communicate. And we talked about, we have a responsibility, especially as believers, to weigh our relationships and to weigh how we communicate. And if you're an aggressive communicator, think about when you speak to people, what their body language is like. Are they automatically agreeable? Do you find people go out of their way not to speak to you and not to communicate? Weigh the relationships that you have. Do you have long lasting and healthy relationships, or do you not? These are some cues that you can have that show you, hi Jess, what kind of communicator you can be. Now, remember, we're doing all this because it's important for us to be self-aware. But we're not having these conversations just for us to be self-aware and to feel bad about ourselves. No, we're doing it so that we can be self-aware and we can seek the Lord for change. Because we have a responsibility to do that. We have responsibility to ourselves, to the Lord, and of course, all to the relationships that we have, to ensure that we're being the best us that we can be. And it's not a work of man, it's not a work of our flesh. We acknowledge these things, we acknowledge these areas of weakness, and we seek the Lord and say, God, okay, thank you for revealing these things to me. Now I seek you for change. Okay, so that's our motivation here, not to feel bad about ourselves, but to be aware and to see change take place in our lives. Okay. All right. So now the next style of communication that I want to speak about is the passive aggressive communicator. So we went over passive, we then went over aggressive, and now we're going over passive aggressive, which of course you can tell by the name is a combination of both. And I can tell you this, I find that most people, and this is when it comes to conflict and things of that nature, most people will kind of fall in this realm, the passive aggressive realm of communicating. So I will read a definition of what I found online that I thought was a great explanation of what this style of communicating is. And that is, the passive aggressive communication style brings both of these styles together for another form of ineffective communication. This style is used when people speak as if they don't care about something, which is the passive communication style, but in a way that's indirectly angry, and that's the aggressive style of communicators. So passive aggressive communicators will sometimes mutter comments to themselves while in the presence of other people, as if they didn't want anyone to hear it. So that's, for an example, if I'm in a group of people, right, and we're having a conversation about something, and perhaps somebody says something that I don't particularly agree with. Instead of taking an assertive, communication style and communicating that I disagree with what's being said or help me to understand what's being said. Instead of doing that, I won't directly communicate with the person that I disagree with, but I'll just mutter something under my breath. Well, I don't think that that's right. Well, that doesn't make any sense. But I'll say it low, low so the person that I really should be speaking to doesn't hear it. But perhaps I want to have the ear of somebody that's right next to me. So that's my way of getting out what needs to be said. Okay. A lot of passive aggressive communicators will also refuse to confront others about something that is bothering them. When people are using this style, they may give someone the silent treatment or talk about the issue of someone who isn't a part of it to avoid the situation altogether. So this type of um, action that's taking place is a passive aggressive. So let's, for example, if I'm a spouse and my wife does something that I don't like, instead of in an assertive but loving way expressing the way I feel, I'll just get a silent treatment. I'll slam drawers. Well, I'll do things huff and puff and kind of mutter things underneath my breath. That is not directly addressing what the issue is. It's taking a passive aggressive style, which is ineffective. And I'm sure as I'm giving some of these examples, we can all find ourselves in one way, shape, or form. We can find ourselves in this place. And in our minds, we can say we're taking this because I just want to keep the peace, or I don't want to fight. So because I don't want to fight, I'm just going to mutter things. I'm going to slam things. I'm going to say things in a whisper or under my breath, or I'm going to tell somebody else something and then instead of directly addressing the person at hand. Now, a lot of times when we say things like, I know I don't want to fight, or I don't want this, or I don't want there to be conflict, I don't want there, it's because we haven't learned a skillful, effective way of expressing ourselves without being hostile, without being able to express our opinion or our feelings on something while being able to receive what the other person's having to say as well. Remember, the aggressive tone believes that you are right and leaves no room for you to be wrong. The assertive tone, which we'll go into a little bit in a little bit, that person is able to skillfully express how they're feeling, but they do so recognizing that there could be some truth in what the other person has to say as well. They do so recognizing that there is a part of them that could be wrong, and they want to be right. They want there to be union. They want there for it to yield a positive result. So it's important. So taking on this passive aggressive tone, it doesn't yield anything good. To you, it may feel like you've done something because unlike the passive tone, where you literally are not doing anything at all, you're not even giving any nonverbal uh, 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 motions or actions to show that you don't agree with something. The passive aggressive may feel like you've done something because you've let something out, but you haven't done anything. You've just communicated poorly. It's something that it's important for us to be able to address. This person isn't assertive enough to gracefully express themselves, so they will do so in a way that's seemingly hidden. So it feels like, well, I'm not really doing anything wrong. I'm not really being aggressive, seemingly hidden, but it's not. It's still an aggressive form of communicating, but it's masked. So I gave the example about the spouse, and even some things that I can say that maybe you might say to your spouse, all along the lines of trying to keep the peace. You may say things like, "Whatever you say, honey," or "I don't think that's going to work, but whatever you want," or "You're the boss," or different things like that that we can just say, and it's really in a passive aggressive communicating because we don't really agree, but we're just saying these little snide little comments. The biggest danger here is the person feeling as if they had communicated skillfully because they were agreeable, but still were able to vent. But they absolutely are not doing that. So let's look at a scripture here. Let's turn to Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 15. Ephesians 4 and 15. You guys know I read from the Amplified. Ephesians chapter 4 and 15 says, "But speaking the truth in love, in all things, both our speech and our lives, expressing his truth, who is the head, that's Christ." That was Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 15. Now, this is important for us to recognize this passive aggressive tone because, again, I feel like we can use this and think that we've done something good because we were able to get a little bit out of what we wanted to express. It wasn't as hostile as an aggressive nature would be. We're not harboring anything, but we showed them, whether it's verbally or by nonverbal communication or action. But again, I have to remind us that is an ineffective way of communicating. You're not doing anything. You're further perpetuating the problem because maybe the receiving person might know, may be able to pick up on your cues that you're upset about something. So now you've put it on that other person to be able to come to you and say what's wrong, or are you upset, or you don't agree? Tell me what you really feel. That's not the way that we're supposed to be communicating with each other. And I mean this again, no matter who's watching this, you're to measure every single relationship that you have and every style of communicating. This is not just talking about with your spouse. This is talking about family members, your children, your colleagues, even amongst the ministry. We are to weigh how we are communicating. You can even take that passive aggressive tone, maybe even in ministry. Don't agree with something, instead of outright saying it in an assertive manner, you'll mutter something under your breath. Or instead of actually speaking to the person directly about it, you'll say something to brother so and so or sister so and so. So now instead of actually communicating in a healthy way, now what you've begun to do is just gossip. It's true. It's important for us to recognize that you want to have healthy, effective communication styles. Okay, so this has been a progression of sorts to get us to the fourth style of communicating, and this is a style that we should all be aiming for. This is a style that we should be weighing every single way that we communicate against, and that is the assertive communication style. Assertive. Okay, so again, like before, I'll read a definition that I found that I thought was a good explanation of what this assertive style is. Of all the communication styles, the assertive version is thought to be the most effective. Assertive communicators express their thoughts in a polite manner that is considerate of other people's opinions. They respect all values, thoughts, and ideas and speak in a calm voice while making non threatening eye contact. Okay, so I'll read it again. They respect all values, thoughts, and ideas and speak in a calm voice while making non threatening eye contact. So I believe it's important, and I think that we all need to believe that when you are communicating with someone, it's important to make eye contact and not in a threatening manner where like you're glaring at them. You know how we can do that to kind of intimidate or to make someone feel less than. And I say that because these are all tactics that we can learn in this world of how we're supposed to be, how you're supposed to get your point across. I mentioned something last week that if sometimes when we recognize that we may have a passive style, we can come off, well, I'm not gonna, meaning we had a passive style maybe in a previous relationship where somebody was very aggressive with us, and we've made up in our minds, well, I'm not gonna be that way anymore. Whether it was a job, a relationship, a church, whatever it may be, I'm not gonna do that. So we jump all the way to the other style, and we go from being passive to being extremely aggressive. And our minds, we're justified because we've said to ourselves, well, I'm not going to allow anybody to do what was done to me before. But you just took something that was done to you and now you're doing it to others. The assertive communication style is the way we're supposed to be. And you can be confident in what you're speaking, but you can speak in a polite manner. This is somebody who has a good character. This is somebody that recognizes I'm not a know-it-all. I don't know everything. It's important to trust wisdom and understand that there may be other people that know. Even if you're confident in what you're saying. You don't speak in a manner that's domineering and I know more than you. Okay? So this person, one of the key signs of an assertive communicator is their use of I statements. Even if they disagree with someone else, they remove the blame and put it on themselves. This is a great example that I thought of. And instead of saying you're wrong, right? If me and Libby are in a conversation and she says something, that I don't agree with, I can choose to say you're wrong, or I can just say I don't agree. See, by just saying you're wrong, it's automatically giving a statement that just ends the whole situation. There's no room for further conversation. You're wrong. And if there is further conversation, then Libby, on the other end, is now having to prove herself. And maybe now she starts trying to get aggressive because she feels like she needs to now defend her point in a strong way because of the comment that I made. But when I say I don't agree, or this is a comment that I make quite often, help me to understand. Now you're entreating the person. Now you're giving them an opportunity to further explain themselves, not because they're defending themselves, but because they want you to understand their point. And now we're mutually able to have a civil conversation. This is how we're supposed to communicate. This is how we're supposed to communicate in every single relationship that we have. Remember, when we think about these communication styles, it's important for us to really concentrate on them when it's in reference to conflict. And unfortunately, conflict and disagreements can happen more with your loved ones. So it's really going to lean more in with your spouses, your children, your close friends. It's really going to rely heavily on those areas, but it's in every single relationship that we have. You may be in a position where you are an authority figure at work, or you're in leadership in church. Your responsibility is not to speak and a tone that and even in nonverbal, communication and body language that says I know everything, and I'm not going to listen to anything that you have to say. This is not the way we're called to be. The wisdom recognizes that we don't know it all, and you speak in a calm manner, non-threatening eye contact when you're speaking with someone. I'll tell you something. I I have to say would like to, think of myself to be a pretty good communicator. I'd like to think that. I do, of course, recognize that there are areas that I need to improve in. But one thing that I know for sure, and unfortunately, I've known this for a little while now, and it's gotten worse. I'm going to tell you what it is. I enjoy making eye contact when I'm speaking with someone, I'm communicating, especially when they're speaking to me. I'm going to keep my eyes on you as we're communicating because that means that we're locked in. I'm listening to what's being said. Although I did tell you guys previously that unfortunately at church, because my mind is everywhere, I'm constantly looking around, which I have to work on. But what I found also I do when I'm communicating is because of the struggle that I have with my memory when I'm communicating things and I want to make sure I'm saying something in a way that's going to be easily understood by the receiving party, I'll find myself looking off, not connecting eyes with them. And it's not because I'm not trying to connect with them, it's because in addition to connecting with that person, I'm trying to make sure what I'm expressing is all the thoughts that I have because I don't want to forget what needs to be said. So I'll go off, and that's me thinking, and I'm going through what needs to be said. It's an interesting thing because it was never a way that I've had to communicate because I've always been able to communicate and be able to express myself without having to worry about remembering. But as unfortunately, this is just being a reality. Unfortunately, as I'm struggling with my memory, I'm finding this is what I have to do to be able to concentrate. Unfortunately, by doing so, although I might be able to, it may aid me in remembering. What I'm unfortunately doing is now I'm not connecting the way I need to with the person that I'm communicating with. Does that make sense? I know it's a lot of stuff, but I say that because it's important for all of us at every single level to be very aware of how we are communicating. And I'm listing all these four different things, but there's different things all inside there. We want to be effective when we are communicating. Okay? An assertive communicator does not believe he is always right or she's always right, but they're also not afraid to express their opinion logically and in a well-mannered, well thought out way. They welcome the opinions of others and they want to learn and grow in every single relationship. This is our goal. Every single one of us, our goal is to be able to communicate in an assertive way. And of course, the relationships I've already listed, that's important for us to be able to communicate. I see the time. I'm winding down in a couple of minutes. So there's a few bullet points that I wanted to address. Being assertive does not mean being arrogant. An assertive communicator is not an arrogant communicator. Someone who is arrogant, again, they believe that they are always right and they can speak in a very domineering tone. And that can be ineffective because they won't get any rebuttal. And how you're going to learn and grow if you think that you're right in every single situation. It's important to be able to listen and make sure you're doing this. And I speak to the husbands and wives. Make sure that you're listening to each other. Respect each other. Respect what God has given you in your spouse. Even in areas that you deem are weak in that person's life. You don't know in a certain situation, they might be right. Don't just automatically, well, I know they don't know, and this that's an arrogant tone that you're taking. And in an arrogant tone, you're unable to grow. Okay, another bullet point, it's important. Be honest, but be respectful. People make comments like truth hurts. And you know what? There is some truth in that comment. But I believe that you can say the truth and you can say it in love and you can say it in a respectful way where it doesn't have to sting as much. Sometimes if it's a big conversation and it's something that really needs to be spoken about, yeah, it might hurt the person, but the tone in which you're delivering it doesn't have to hurt. So you don't have to be, I'm just gonna spit this out, I'm gonna spit my venom, I'm gonna say my piece. This is not the way we're supposed to behave. You say so and you do so in respect. And it's in everything. How you speak to your children, you do so in respect and you do so in love. 100% as parents, you're the boss. But we still speak and respect and we speak in love. And why is that so important? When I was speaking about some of these negative communication styles, passive, aggressive, passive, and aggressive, where did these things stem from? A lot of them come from trauma from childhood. We act the way we learned. Our dad or our mom was a very aggressive communicator, so it causes us to shut down, and we just want to keep the peace, so we take on a passive style. Or the other side, they were aggressive, and that was where they got their way. So we feel like that's the way we have to get our way. We learn these type of behaviors. You learn them as in our upbringing. Even in ministry, you can learn these things. In the workplace, you can learn all of these negative qualities. So you don't want to continue perpetuating the problem. It's important for you to recognize it and to change. Listen, to communicate effectively, we have to listen. And that's part of being assertive. Of course, you express yourself, you express your opinion, you express the way you felt about a certain situation that needs to be discussed, and then you leave time to listen. You don't just rattle off what you want to say and then you move on. That's not communicating. Be aware of your emotions, control them, but it doesn't mean they have to be masked. Okay? Our emotions, and we spoke about emotions a couple of weeks ago. Our emotions are a part of us. They make us who we are, but they shouldn't control every part of who we are. But I mean, this is specifically for men. A lot of times, when it comes to shedding a tear, anyway, we can be taught in society that men aren't supposed to show emotion. Men are supposed to be strong. And you know what? To a certain degree, I do agree with that in that I don't feel like us as men should be crying every 5 seconds about everything. I'm sorry, I just don't believe that we should. but it doesn't mean that I don't believe that we should show emotion. If something has impacted your heart, it's touched you, and you're feeling, and that emotion comes on you, allow yourself to feel that. It's important for you to feel it. It's important for the person that you're communicating to see that. Again, not allowing it to control you, but it's important for you to be you, especially in these core relationships and as spouses and family and close friends. Do I think you should be crying at work? No, I don't think so. I think if you find yourself getting to that point, it's probably best for you to excuse yourself so you can pull yourself together. But in certain environments and relationships, it's important for you to be you, so that the person that you're communicating with can is allowed to be able to see your vulnerability, and that vulnerability may pull you guys closer together, or may allow the person to be able to soften their side and really be able to see what you're feeling. Maybe they weren't able to see it, understand it, but that kind of softened the mood. Now, the other side of this, and this came up in the men's meeting, the other side of this is sometimes emotions and crying specifically, or even anger, can be used to as a, oh, what's a good word, as a method to be able to control the situation. So maybe you may turn on the floodgates and just cry because that's your way of getting your way and stopping the situation is to show your emotion. And the other side of it maybe is just anger and rage. You know that when you raise your voice and you get angry, or hit punch something or whatever, that other person is going to completely shut down. So you can use that to your benefit. This is not what we're supposed to be doing. We're allowed to be vulnerable and we're allowed to show ourselves, but not to the point where we're trying, that was the word, we're trying to manipulate the other person by using these emotions. That's something that we should never do. Okay, because then not only are you allowing your emotions to control you, but now you're allowing your emotions to control the other person and to dictate how they're going to respond. And that's an ineffective way of communicating. Okay, so I think, yeah, that's going to be it uh, for this evening. There was one or two other things that I wanted to mention, but either I'll touch on it next week and then go into the next topic, or not. It's not something that's that great that needs to be discussed. But I pray and hope that listening to this, we allowed ourselves to really weigh our relationships and to weigh how we're communicating. I can tell you, I've already um, heard people, they'll say things like to me about them weighing how they're communicating and seeing how they are, and it's wonderful. And I want to continue to hear those type of things because that's telling me that we understand the importance of this topic, but not just understand it, that we're actively doing something to be better, to be healthy, and to communicate in an effective manner. Now remember, everything that we're talking about is not just something that we are aware of and we just do it in our own strength. Yeah, there are things that we have to do, but our first thing that we do is go to the Lord in prayer. That's the first thing that we do. As we acknowledge these areas of weakness and in any form that you found yourself across these different styles, as we acknowledge them, we go to God in prayer, we seek Him for wisdom, and then we testify the changes that are taking place in our lives. Amen. So I enjoyed being with you guys this evening. Don't forget, this Sunday, remember, we're going to have our first outside service of the season. That will be at Jay and Carrie's house. Make sure we're spreading the word. We'll continue to remind everyone. Okay, guys, have a great night. I love you all, and I'll see you guys on Thursday.